lesson this morning comes to us from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 3, beginning at verse 13. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? But Jesus answered him, Let it be so now, for it is proper for us in this way to fulfill all righteousness. Then he consented. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. The word of the Lord. So, how good is your memory? I can't say that age has improved much on mine. But I'm going to give my memory a chance to redeem itself today. I'm reasonably confident, though, that I'm up to this task, because instead of relying on my ever-fumbling hippocampus to recall a name or a recent event, I'm calling on my deepest memories today. Today, I want to remember my baptism. Now, at first glance, this may seem as out of reach as any memory. After all, like a lot of you, I was baptized as an infant. Yet, our baptism extends far beyond its ritual enactment as a sacrament, as important as that is. To be baptized into Christ is to be immersed in his church, to be raised in this fellowship, to share the stories, the joys, and the sorrows of faith. So, why do I want to remember my baptism, my immersion into the church? Well, it all starts a long time ago in the collective memory of our church. You see, around 150 years ago, a Presbyterian church wanted to leave the denomination. Some things never change, huh? The presbytery did not want them to go. In this case, went to court. And this particular case ended up in the Supreme Court of the United States of America. The Supreme Court ruled around 150 years ago that a church, in essence, with any denominational ties, cannot by its own vote, by its own decision, leave a denomination. Only the larger governing body, only the denomination can grant dismissal. In our case, only a presbytery can vote to dismiss a church out of the denomination. Well, a lot has changed in over 150 years, but we Presbyterians still like to fight. And that hadn't changed much. And there are still churches that want to leave our denomination, even as I speak. Our denomination now, by the way, called the Presbyterian Church USA. Now, of course, presbyteries in today's world have dismissal policies in place that seek to ensure a fair procedure is observed when churches want to leave the denomination before it would ever come to a vote on the floor of presbytery, before a church would ever go before presbytery and actually request that vote. Well, our presbytery, right, we're the Mount Jefferson Presbyterian Church, the next highest governing body, Salem Presbytery, which extends, and help me out here, Joe, roughly from Boone to, say, Chapel Hill, and then Statesville up to the Virginia border, kind of this area of North Carolina, well over 100 churches. And currently, there are around 3 and maybe 4 churches that have initiated our dismissal policy. They want to leave our denomination. Well, I am, as it turns out, a member of the Committee on Ministry for Salem Presbytery that works with these churches. As you can imagine, each church has a long list of reasons they want to leave the Presbyterian Church USA. A long list of things that they believe are wrong with our denomination. Still, even after the presbytery, Salem Presbytery, is reasonably sure that there is no significant minority in any of these churches that wants to remain in the PCUSA, only Salem Presbytery, by its vote of elders and minister representatives, can dismiss a church out of the Presbyterian PCUSA. So if such a request comes before Salem Presbytery, how will I vote? And you elders, particularly you elders who are being elected or installed, today, how would you vote on such a request? Now, I cannot say beforehand how I would vote in this circumstances. I've never been to a meeting where it's been requested. And I always try to listen and understand all sides to a debate when I'm at Presbytery. And there have been many times when I've changed my anticipated response after hearing the pros and cons discussed during or before a vote. Still, when I remember my baptism, when I recall my immersion into the life and fellowship of the Church of Jesus Christ and what it means to be a member of the body of Christ, I know my anticipated vote. Unless moved otherwise, I plan to vote no whenever a church requests to leave our denomination. But why? Particularly if a church goes through this dismissal process and there's no significant minority in that church that wants to stay, why would I vote against their request to leave? The reason I at least plan to vote against a church that wants to leave is that long list of things that is wrong with the Presbyterian Church USA. In truth, that list of things gone wrong is why we need dissenting churches to remain in our fellowship. We need their prophetic voice. We cannot be a whole church without them. To vote them out of our denomination, even at their request, to swing the axe that cut the tie, would be a disservice to the Church of Jesus Christ. And here's why. When a member of the body of Christ is drowning, do you walk away? No. If the PCUSA is truly drowning in sin to the extent that dissenting churches claim, then we need them now more than ever. Now, telling others that they are drowning and then walking away, that is, leaving the denomination, is not the answer. Neither, though, would I expect any dissenting church to jump in and try to save other churches. As I learned in lifeguard training, and as I've said before, never jump in to save a drowning person. They are just as likely to take you down with them. Instead, you don't walk away. You don't jump in. Throw them a lifeline. The PCUSA needs dissenting churches who refuse to walk away or jump in, but who assume the prophetic role and throw a lifeline to us. A dissenting church cannot make other churches in the PCUSA grab on to their prophetic lifeline. But it's not always about getting your way. It's about always loving your neighbor as yourself. I plan, at least, to vote against dismissing dissenting churches and instead challenge them to remember their baptism, answer the prophetic call, and keep their lifeline before our denomination, even as the PCUSA keeps its lifeline before dissenting churches. You see, this tough love cuts both ways. The PCUSA needs dissenting churches, and dissenting churches need the PCUSA. I believe that we cannot be the church apart from one another. As individuals and as churches, we are all subject to the sin of self-righteousness, let alone all the other sins that are possible. I don't believe that the PCUSA needs gracious dismissals when a church wants to leave the denomination. Instead, we need dissenting churches and presbyteries who remember their baptism, speak the truth in love as they understand it, and refuse to walk away from one another, because it is only then that we are the one church of Jesus Christ. Let all God's people say,